Give it just 2 seconds. It's connecting now and we're live.
Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. This is the Leesburg Area Chamber of Commerce Ask the Expert. So we've been doing these series lately, and we're so excited today to have to be talking about marketing, talk about marketing within what's happening right now, but just in general as well. And we have the perfect expert for it because he is an expert. And I'm going to let he's looking around to see who I'm talking about. And then I'm going to let Mark tell us a little bit about yourself and about your background, because it's pretty amazing. And then let's start with our discussion today.
Well, good morning, first of all, and thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I think this is a great concept that you guys have been doing. I know this is you're a few weeks in, and I've seen some of the other ones that you've done, so kudos to you guys. And I think that's part of what we're going to talk about, and that is how to make sure that you're staying true to your brand. And I know for the Leesburg Area Chamber, one of the key components of your brand is being a connector. And I think you guys have done a really good job of that. So we can talk more about that. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Mark. I'm the president of Red Apples Media. We are a multimedia video production and marketing company based in Leesburg. We just celebrated our 10th anniversary as a company. We're into our 11th year. We specialize in video production content, but over time we have grown into utilizing that as a multimedia platform. So in other words, once the content's created, how is it distributed? So we've gotten very involved in the creation of websites. We do some management of social media as it relates to video content. And then we're a full service advertising and marketing agency for a handful of clients where we manage everything from their outdoor, their print, movie theaters. So that's sort of the broad scope of what we do. I think one of the things that separates us is we are not just producers of video. We are very involved in how video is used as a marketing element. And so getting really involved in understanding the client, what they're trying to achieve, what they're trying to communicate, who their audience is, who their competition is, what platforms do they have available to get that message out, and also making sure that there's continuity in their messaging. So in some cases, we might be working with a client where somebody else may handle things like their print. So we want to work with that group as well to make sure there's continuity in messaging and branding across those different platforms. So that's kind of the quick story about who we are in a nutshell, who we are and what we do.
So Mark, can you just tell, like if we're going back to the basics, I guess, before you dive into the rest of this, is there like a general, and I was thinking about this last night, is there a general formula when it comes to marketing? Is there a certain dollar amount that you should be putting into, like according to maybe what your revenue is, or is there a formula when it comes to marketing as to how much money you should be spending?
We get that question a lot. And what we have found is that it varies with business sectors. So for instance, about half of our client portfolio is somehow in the medical space. And if you are a practice, what we have found is somewhere between 5 and 8% of gross revenue for the year should be budgeted back into marketing. Now there's all kinds of variables that go into that though. So for instance, to use that same example, if you're a medical practice and you added, or you're going to be adding a new physician to the practice and you're going to have to ramp up marketing, that 5 or 8% may not be sufficient to maintain what you were doing plus additional marketing for that client, or for that new physician rather. Smaller businesses will take a look at that, and depending on what their overhead is and how they generate business. So in other words, if you're a business that primarily gets your leads from word of mouth, you may look at that and say, I'm not sure I need to invest 5 to 8% of my annual gross revenue. But that's been kind of a pretty fixed number that we have seen over time. There are definitely some that go a little bit outside that number on the plus side, and some that go a little bit lower on that number.
I want to just let everyone know that the intention of this, for all of our people that are actually on the call with us, the intention, of course, is to be very interactive. So I am going to ask a few questions, but please, you all, if you have questions or if something comes up, please feel free to chime in and ask away. So, okay, so Mark, going back into this, a lot of people are planning on, we're looking at possibly reopening. I know we have some businesses who maybe haven't been able to be open. What would be your suggestion as to what they should be doing right now? Maybe if they're, even if they're not open right now, or just give us a couple scenarios of things. So people who maybe can't open, let's think about Tracy. She's probably a little bit off still on being able to have clients, or somebody that's a spa or a hair place. What should they be doing in the areas of marketing, as opposed to someone who maybe is about to start, that's about to open their doors and so on.
Right.
So going down the line.
So let's talk at sort of the philosophical level for a minute. And I kind of alluded to it a few minutes ago. I think the most important thing that we have learned in this process, in this 6 to 8 week window of time, is the businesses that have stayed true to their brand, even in these uncertain circumstances, are the ones that continue to be strong and probably will be able to relaunch quicker. And so what I mean by that is, I'll give you a couple of good examples. I'm going to be really honest about this. Let's take a couple of restaurants, for example, and I'll name the positive one, and I'll respectfully not name the other one. But so, for instance, Bloom's. If you guys have been following Bloom's, they have taken this opportunity to completely refurbish and renovate the restaurant. And I think they've done a fabulous job of keeping people up to date on what they've been doing. So they're building up some excitement, some momentum about what to look forward to when they reopen again. And it probably was not going to be something that they might have done otherwise without sort of this forced situation. So they turned that into a positive. They're posting some great pictures of the floors being resurfaced and the booths being reupholstered. I think that's a great example. One of the things that's been interesting to me to watch is, on one hand, I give a lot of the local restaurants credit for those that were able to quickly adapt to the carry out and drive up kind of service. But here's where I think there could be some issues in the future, and that is, have they fallen short in their ability to deliver on that promise? So, for instance, there's been at least 3 occasions where I've pulled up to a restaurant for my pickup, and I've sat and I sat and I sat, and 2 of those 3 times I actually had to park my car and go inside. So, if part of your brand is the convenience of calling your order, come by, toot your horn, we'll bring it out to you, you have fallen short on the delivery of that brand. Quality of service, quality of food, quality of interaction, are those some of the things that be in your best efforts to adapt to the new world? Is that going to leave no pun intended, but a bad taste in the potential customer's mouth once you reopen as a restaurant, which was really what your core business was to begin with? So I think, staying true to your brand, finding ways to communicate with your existing customers. And so you mentioned Tracy, and I'm not sure if Tracy's been doing this already, but I know that I've got vendors that provide personal services, and they've done really good about everything from just sort of checking in. Hey, how you doing? How you feeling? In the case of Tracy, maybe these are some exercises that you can be doing to kind of help stay, limber and everything, and release some muscle tension, that kind of thing, while you're not able to come and see me. Starting to communicate what steps she might be taking once people do start to come back, because I think there's an expectation that we're not going back to the way it was. Is there a greater frequency in which she's doing certain things to maintain sanitary conditions when a client comes in? So I think you can start to ramp up now those communications and some of those steps that you're going to be taking, and maintain those relationships, and again, staying true to that brand.
Okay, I was trying to give it a little chance in case somebody else had a question, so they didn't have to bite in. So tell us a little bit about the value of of Facebook advertising. How do you think that people can get the best bang for their buck when it comes to utilizing? Well, I should just say social media, not just Facebook, because I know there's lots of avenues.
Yeah. So let's address it that way, because the reality of it is that Facebook is still sort of the 30-ton gorilla right now when it comes to reaching an audience. They make it more and more challenging in your ability to reach an audience. They're in the business of making money. Traffic on Facebook is higher than it's ever been before for a bunch of obvious reasons. And that said, I think part of it is also understanding who your audience is and what it is that you're trying to convey. So, for instance, if you're in a business where there's something that's very visual, and again, let's kind of use some examples. Let's say Aladdis is trying to feature some new product that's come into the store. Facebook is a great platform, but then again, Pinterest and Instagram is probably something that needs to figure into their equation as well. Understanding who and where that audience is. If you're trying to reach a younger group looks at Facebook as the old person's social media. So, again, cutting across into things like Snapchat and Instagram. So there's different things that you can take a look at. It is still a very cost-efficient way to reach an audience and be able to look at analytics. Very, very difficult to look at, for instance, print. So you may advertise in the local newspaper and know that I'm reaching 12,000 printed copies on a Sunday, but I have no idea of knowing how many people, number one, read that newspaper, number two, saw my ad, number three, actually acted upon that ad, unless you have some tracking mechanisms built into that ad. So in other words, a special phone number, a special URL that when you get that incoming communication, you know that that's where it came from. On social media, on the other hand, you know how many people you reached. For instance, if you were promoting a video, you know how many people watched the first 10 seconds of the video and how many people watched it in its entirety, how many people engaged with it, how many people liked it, commented on it, forwarded it and shared it, clicked through on the link to whatever the call to action was. So as far as being able to get true analytics and understand the value of that investment, social media continues to be a very valuable driving source. That's all right. It's okay.
I'm telling Danielle to ask a question from somebody had submitted some questions. So I wanted to make sure we covered them. So Danielle, do you want to make sure that those?
Let me see if I can.
Sure. Yeah. So we had one of our members, Ricky Funk from Dustbusters Cleaner, he had a demo presentation, so he couldn't be on the call this morning, but did want to make sure, he's a new business and he's really trying to do the right thing with his marketing, but wants to know, obviously, kind of have that reassurance that he's going in the right direction. So we kind of already answered one of his questions because that was what his budget should look like.
Mm-hmm.
But his other question was, what platforms are truly best? Is it just social media, or should he be varying that marketing budget with social media / print? So if you could weigh in on that.
Yeah, I think, so not knowing much about his business and where he is in the launch of his business, one of the mistakes that we see quite a bit is, probably about once a month, we'll have somebody come meet with us that wants to start a business. Either they move to the area or they're trying to transition out of a full-time job and start a business. And there's two things that we flag right away. If you're in a full-time job and you're trying to start a business, it's a really, really difficult thing to do. So do you have the time to devote to truly being focused on launching this business and doing it the right way? And the second thing that we see is that they've not really allocated money to marketing. And a lot of times what we'll hear is, well, I've got a Facebook page, which is great. But even if you have 1,000 people that follow you on your Facebook page, on average, you will probably reach between 1% and 2% of the people that follow you with a generic post. In other words, one that you have not paid to boost and reach a larger audience. So if we have a client that maybe just started a Facebook page and no kidding, only has like 100 followers, we know we have to build in a budget in which we're going to have to pay for whatever they post so we can reach a larger targeted audience. So again, not knowing much about him and what specifically his business is, I think one of the other areas is looking for strategic partnerships and who else does something that you do, or in other words, who else does something that would benefit from the services that you provide? What did you say the business was? Dustbusters?
Dustbusters, they're cleaning. They do, they do commercial and residential cleaning.
Okay. And I'm probably not telling him something he doesn't already know, but, is there an opportunity to partner with a local realtor, that maybe has a need for things like commercial cleaning after somebody moves out, or if they've got rental properties, or if they're getting ready to sell a house, that kind of thing. So looking for some strategic partnerships where you can build a reputation, build those relationships. He's in a unique challenge right now because I think you've got two groups of people. One is those that say, my house has got to get cleaned, get your behind in here. And others that are saying, no, I'll vacuum for a few weeks and I'll call you when I feel like it's safe, both for him and for the homeowner. So the timing could be a challenge for him.
Absolutely.
But look, bottom line is, I think I'm going to keep going back to brand. And at some point, he has to figure out what differentiates him from all other cleaning services that are available in this marketplace. And so that's one of the big things that we always talk about with new clients is what differentiates you. And it can't be generic stuff like, you know, we treat every home like it's ours. Like, what cleaning service isn't going to say that? No, man, we plow through the place. If we knock something over, what are you going to do? It's generic stuff like that that really does not serve as a strong brand position. You know, for instance, does he have specific, I don't know, does he have specific licensing, specific credentials, specific insurances that maybe other companies don't? You know, and I think those are some of the things to really highlight to help him differentiate himself coming into a pretty crowded market for the type of services that he provides.
Tracy has a question.
Hey, Tracy.
Hey, Mark. Again, thanks for the opportunity and asking the expert. And just following up on what you said, which I've been doing too, and checking in Facebook Live, checking in that way, and connecting with my clients one-on-one. But you know, one thing I pride myself is being honest and authentic and real with my clients. And for right now, I don't know when I'm going to be able to open. There is that for a lot of reasons that we don't have to go in here. But I mean, what are your thoughts about that as far as just communicating? You know, I may be answering my own question, but just the ongoing communication and being real with that. I mean, who knows? And you know, anyway.
Yeah, no, I think that is critical, Tracy. You have absolutely nothing to lose by being a good communicator. And you know, and I know you personally, and I know the type of business that you run is very personalized. And so taking that extra step to maybe pick up the phone or send a text to some of your core clients and just checking in on them, just checking on their welfare. If you know that there's something in particular, you might have somebody that you know has an ongoing lower back issue. Are there things that you can talk to them about and recommend to them as ways to kind of help alleviate any discomfort that they might be experiencing because they haven't been able to get in with you? But as I said earlier, I think, look, whether it's your business, whether it's restaurants, whether it's a medical office, the world is going to be very different in the next few weeks, in the next few months. And what can you start to pre-educate your clients, both current and potentially future, about the steps that you're taking in recognition and acknowledgement of what the situation is going to be? Again, I said about half of our clients are medical oriented. And so we're already looking at things like the waiting room. And those of you that know me know that we launched this company 10 years ago with Hometown Health Television, which is a video program that airs in the waiting room, which would be great when we'd walk in at the beginning of the month to swap out the DVDs, and there were 20 people at Lake ENT. I don't see Lake ENT packing 20 people into the waiting room anymore. I think they're gonna space people out a little bit more. They might encourage not bringing guests unless it's absolutely necessary that they need to drive you or something like that. Magazines, I mean, are we really going to pick up a magazine that's sitting on the table in a doctor's office? So I think there's a lot of things that we have to look at and figure out how to adapt to those situations.
Thank you.
I feel like I know the answer to this question. In the sense that you primarily focus on video, but is there a marketing tool that that is better, I guess, than others at this point that we should? I mean, like if you only have, say, you don't necessarily have that full amount of budget within your marketing money, dollars to spend. So you only have a little bit of money and you want to put that where it's best going to serve you. What would you say, where's that? I wasn't trying to lob up a softball for you. I really wasn't.
I know.
I'm guessing that that's probably the softball. But
look, straight up video. And anybody who does any marketing knows that is today's answer. And it's been the answer for a couple of years now. I think what you have seen over the last several weeks has been a greater adoption of and adaption to video. I think the bigger question, Sandy, is when do you need to hire a company to produce something for you versus when are you perfectly capable of doing things on your own?
Oh, that's a good question. Good
so
job.
that's a big part of it. Look, I mean, you can watch network television or cable television and see commercials that are being produced using what's called UGC, user generated content. Like, when did you ever think that a Fortune 500 company would be producing a video using, Zoom content and find that to be acceptable? But our mindset has changed in how we use video. The bottom line is it is a great way to communicate, especially in a situation like this. So let's go back to Tracy. Tracy could send out an email about the things that she's doing, but there's something to be said about seeing the look on Tracy's face and hearing the sound in her voice when she reassures her customers and her clients that when they come back, that there are certain steps that she's been taking. We've also become incredibly lazy as a society. We don't want to read anything anymore. We just, we won't read 60 seconds, but we'll watch a 60-second video as long as it keeps us engaged for that period of time. So from an audience standpoint, that's pretty critical. Then you start to get into a whole conversation about things like search engine optimization and the role that video plays, or social media. People who watch analytics will know that video content gets engaged at a much higher level than any other content that's out there. Even things like articles where you might embed a link and you've got to click through, engagement drops dramatically because, again, we've become lazy and we don't want to have to click through and we don't want to wait for that page to load. But if we can sit there and have a video automatically start playing as we go through our news feed, that's going to be far and away the highest opportunity to engage an audience. The other thing I'll say about video is a lot of what's being done now has longevity. So in other words, and a lot of you have heard me use this expression before, produce once, put everywhere. Video is really one of those few mediums where once you make that initial investment, there are multiple platforms to then go ahead and place that content. So it could be your website, could be your social media pages, multiple, could be eBlast if you've got an eBlast database. Then you're talking about things like YouTube and Vimeo. So there's all these different places. Whereas, for instance, if you do a billboard, even though you're creative, your artwork for the billboard might be identical, but you have 5 billboards, you have to pay for 5 billboards, even though your creative was the same. Whereas with video, it's the opposite. You pay for the creative, but the number of places you put it are relatively endless. So that does still continue to be a pretty valuable investment. Again, I think when you talk about when can you do something on your own versus when you should hire somebody, a lot of that has to do with the longevity. So if it's something that's really going to speak to who you are, and it's something that you want to have a life cycle that's a little bit longer, like an image video, for instance, it's probably a place that you want to invest. Some of our clients we've been advising on just doing like a weekly hold up your iPhone and do a quick message that goes out to your followers. And I think that's perfectly suitable. And you don't need to hire a company to do that kind of thing.
I think Z and Jeannie both have a question. Is that right? So do you want to go first and then Jeannie?
Okay. Good morning, everybody.
Hey, Z.
So you answered some of my questions, but like for me, I consider us like we're infants because, we just opened literally. And so everything that, I was even in the midst of trying to find our way and primarily our business, what we wanted to do was our cooking classes and our cafe was something there to hold us up, but it's flipped. And so, where do I put, where do I drive where am I going? What advice do you have for me of which direction, if you were me, what would you be doing? And I know some of that deserves a consultation and a fee, and I'm game for that. But just overall, just like a blanket, if I were you, Z, I'd, go this direction, kind of thing.
So when you say that it flipped, what flipped and what were you and what are you? What did you mean by that?
Okay, so the Kitchen Cafe, we're a cooking school, cafe, and event center. So food is what we do. Our primary business, what we've been doing for the past 13 years, is cooking classes, and Chef Joy and I are personal chefs. So the cafe we had during the day for late breakfast and lunch to just keep us open while we did our cooking classes in the evening. Well, those are non-existent. And we don't know how those classes are going to be in the future. I've already started doing some contractual cooking classes for clients and things like that. But our main bread and butter now is our cafe. So, it's just kind of, we're trying to navigate without looking desperate. We just want to, go in the flow of things, because I see some of my fellow businessmen and women, after a while, we start to look desperate, and I don't think it's a good look for us as a business or industry. And I want to gracefully go through this. Yes, it's stressful and it's challenging, but I believe in fluidity, and I believe we can make it, but I don't want to look desperate, but I do want to go in the right direction.
Yeah. So first of all, kudos to you for being flexible and adaptable, which I know a lot of your fellow restaurateurs and those in the food and beverage industry had to do. And some have done it better than others, for sure. But I also understand that it probably wasn't something you were planning for, and possibly something you weren't even trained to understand how to do. A lot of it's just going by gut and instinct to be able to keep the business going. So huge kudos to you and others who've been able to do that. I think there's something to be said, Z, about, again, staying focused on your goal and staying focused on your brand, and recognizing that while your original plan may not look exactly like you had originally thought it was going to, how do you adapt that plan? So if part of what differentiates you is those cooking classes, what can you be doing now, number one, to come up with Z's Cooking Class 2.0? And how do you start to communicate that? And how do you get innovative in being able to offer those types of services? In the meantime, if you are building up a clientele in the cafe, of which I am one, I think, there's something to be said about the curveball that the universe threw you, and your ability to adapt to that might be a great way to continue to keep the money flowing in, keep the lights on, and continue to build the portion of your business that you're truly, truly passionate about. Does that help in sort of a generic sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you a lot. It does.
And I'm sure you've thought about this, but one of the things that we have been tasked with several of our clients is developing paywalls. So in other words, somebody might subscribe to Z's video cooking classes, but the only way they can access them is through a paywall, where it's a subscription or a one-time only. While I was listening to you, and I'm not trying to poke my nose into your business, but one of the things I thought of is there a way that you can kind of create a to-go package of all of the ingredients that are going to be necessary, so that you can bring them home and then log on to Z's video, and you've got all the ingredients you need to cook whatever that week's specialty dish is going to be. You're nodding because you already thought about this.
Yeah. It's funny. I was like, I've only spent the last few days actually writing a class for a specific client that would involve that's going to involve,
right.
But then along with that came logistics, because now I have to do delivery and blah, blah, blah. But it's you saying that is just reassuring. I wanted to know if I'm going in the right direction, because I have been pulled in so many directions. We do community dinner on Wednesdays.
Right.
We do, Sunday supper, blah, blah, blah. And I don't want to stress myself out so thin till I'm not effective.
Right.
So saying that kind of helped me out. So I appreciate
it. Yep. I think, and certainly not to compare, I think they're apples to apples, but maybe Granny Smith versus Macintosh. But one of the things I love is Donut King was doing these kits where like you go in there and you buy a half a dozen plain donuts, but it comes with like different icings and different toppings. And then they started to theme them for Easter. And so it made it a more interactive experience. It was something that you could bring home and the kids could have some fun for a few minutes. So, you know, I was that was sort of in the back of my head when I was thinking about how do you take what you do with sort of that type of concept, but amp it up to a higher level.
I think Jeannie had a question.
I did. I would definitely subscribe to your video, Z.
Cooking classes.
Yes, I would. Cooking class. What is your thoughts on LinkedIn? And I ask that because we are, in this time, being an outdoor salesperson and being an extrovert and always out and about, making calls to cold calls is not my thing. But we are doing well checks. So we get a list every day, and that list we have to call every customer and we have to send it back. And then every day we get a new list, and these are all active customers that we have to check on. We are not allowed to do Facebook. LinkedIn is okay. Do people really use LinkedIn looking for a new business before they actually open or move, or even active customers? Is LinkedIn really that big? I'm not a LinkedIn person.
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways to answer that question. First of all, how are you, Jeannie? Good to see you.
Doing good, thank you.
So there has been a huge surge in usage of LinkedIn over the last several weeks. Unfortunately, in large part because of people who have been laid off or furloughed and now they're looking for jobs. So that might not be the audience that you are looking for, but any statistic that you look at, if you were to look at sort of a 6-month trend of LinkedIn usage, you're going to see a huge spike. And I just kind of wanted to give you context as to why that spike was there, so you don't look at that and go, oh my gosh, there's the gravy train and I'm missing it. So just sort of keep that in mind. LinkedIn continues to be a very valuable source for business networking. Now, when you ask the question, what I'm not sure whether you're asking is it Jeannie poking around and interacting with people on LinkedIn, or is it, for instance, you guys running paid ads on LinkedIn that might be targeted to small businesses in your geographic area that are looking for the type of services that you offer? So it's kind of two different conversations from an ad standpoint versus a grassroots standpoint. The other thing that I've personally noticed with LinkedIn is I've gotten a flood of connection requests from people that I have no idea who they are. They're either second or third, level connections, but I'm not inclined to open up my network to people that I don't know. So unless it's the type of thing where somebody is willing to make an introduction for you, or their existing connections and contacts for you, the other point to it, Gene, is you've got to have something to say. If, for instance, and I'll just make some of this up, but if, for instance, Comcast is offering, a special deal of some kind, and it's somebody that, I know that you've always been very good with us in making sure that we get what we need the way we need it. But if it's a proactive approach to say, hey, there's higher bandwidth available in your area, and I wanted you to be aware of it. I know the timing might not be right, but I just wanted you to know about it. There's got to be value in the communication that you want to share with them, as opposed to it just being generic, because then it becomes white noise. So from the standpoint of targeting business to business with existing LinkedIn relationships, I would say it is worth your time.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Are there any special offers available, by the way?
Actually, Comcast has been very, very generous. Businesses, I sent out a couple emails to our restaurants that I handle, and they are crediting customers. They are actually giving suspended services, so that way they still have active services, and they're only paying $30 a month for all their services. They just lower the bandwidth for some restaurants, essential workers,
right,
that actually utilize us. They have been tremendous, helping businesses and putting them on a great package. So Z Carter, I would definitely check that out and see. Just tell them that business has been really slow. And my last business, they took their $230 bill, and all they're paying is $30 for like the next 3 months, but they still have internet and phone, but they don't have the highest internet. So I would definitely check that out. I just can't get the word out to everybody, and I definitely can't put it on social media.
Well, and look, so here's one of the ongoing debates when it comes to what you just described. And that is finding the fine line and the right way to communicate what you're doing without it looking like you're patting yourself on the back. So for instance, and I think I can't see all the screens, but I think Lynn from USB is still on there. They put up a social media post after the first round of stimulus went through, thanking their staff for helping put out however many millions of dollars, I don't remember the number, to how many of their clients and customers. But it was worded in such a way where it didn't look like they were patting themselves on the back, that they were providing a very valuable service to their clients, and they were giving a tip of the hat to their staff who worked, yeoman's work to try to push that paperwork through. So if there are ways that you can communicate, and look, if you can't put it out on your social media because, they don't want to light up the phones with people looking for discounts, you have that ability, Gene, to be able to contact people on a case by case and say, look, I just want you to be aware of this. Because again, now what you're doing is you're building your personal brand, which I know is something that you have worked very hard over the years. No one who knows you would be surprised to know that you genuinely have your customers, interests first and foremost. I get it. You're a company girl. You get paid by the big guys. So I get that. But you also recognize that if you're not there for your customers and they decide to go elsewhere or they get frustrated, that doesn't help you or your bosses either. So again, maintaining that personal brand of, I want you to be aware of these opportunities, I think is a very valuable chance for you to continue to stay in touch and for people to remember that, Jeannie's always there for us whenever we need her.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Jeannie, I think the wellness checks are a great idea. This is Lynn, and our investment officers have been doing that, just calling clients a few every day, checking on them. So I think that's a great idea. I love that.
Gene, actually, one of the things that I did that I've never had to do before is I had to figure out how to go into my account and forward the office number to my cell phone. Because we have not been in the office. I'll do one day a week in the office, but we haven't been in there in several weeks. And that was something that I'd never had to do before. And I'm kind of a little bit more tech savvy than maybe the average person is, so it wasn't difficult. But again, something like that is a good trigger for you to say, hey, I just want to remind you, because you've got phone service with us, that that's an option, that if you're going to be away from your place of business, you know that you can forward your number. And here's a little cheat sheet on how to do that type of thing. Or how to remotely dial into your voicemail messages, that kind of thing.
Those are all good reminders for sure. I don't want to, Mark, I know we're kind of getting low on time here. I just wanted to make sure that there were no major obvious questions or things that you think that we should cover before we go. And also just give everybody one more chance if they have a question in particular to ask that question.
Yeah, I really, really want to punctuate what I've been saying throughout this, and that is staying true to your brand, staying true to your values as a business and as an individual. There's a great quote that I love to use from Jon Stewart, that our values only matter when they're being tested. Otherwise, they're not values, they're hobbies. And I think this has been a great test of businesses and what their values truly are. Look, if you were already the type of business that was invested in our community and you helped out local schools, then in spite of your situation, you're still finding creative ways to support, the high school graduates who, everyone's trying to rally around. If you have always been a community bank that has been focused on local businesses, your brand is proving up to that because of the situation that we've all been put in. So I just really want to encourage everybody, no matter what their business is, whether it's a personal brand like Jeannie's or a business brand like USB, is to really kind of take a moment to evaluate what your brand is. What is your identity? What are your values? And have you been staying true to them? And I know it's challenging. I know that some of that might be counterintuitive when you think about, I don't know that I want to write a check for $100 to help out, the local food drive or whatever. We're kind of short on cash right now. That becomes a real test to try to figure out, is there an opportunity? Is there a way to make that happen? And still stay true to the brand along the way. Are there final questions? Do we hit them all?
looking to see if anybody is like frantically waving or trying to interrupt going through.
I guess I can ask Mark a question and, oh, sorry, Danielle.
Oh, no, you're good. Go for it, Lynn.
And I think, maybe you answered that in your comments, and I appreciate that because I really have struggled with the messaging for the bank and trying to let people know how they can bank and without it sounding too salesy, but to say, we told you to sign up for online banking years ago, and now you should have done it. That's what I'd really,
Right.
it's kind of, if I could figure out a funny way to say that.
Tactic. I might encourage you to word it a little differently.
I know. I went through my head all kinds of scenarios of trying to make that funny, and I just couldn't get comfortable with it to say, we told you so.
That was pretty funny.
But so Lynn, kind of kidding aside, I think where your window of opportunity is using this as a way to re-communicate and frame it in the world that we're in now. Right. So for instance, we just signed up for Zelle as a way of doing cash transfer through our USB accounts. We kind of knew it was there. We haven't really paid all that much attention to it, but we do recognize that it's going to be a valuable tool for us in moving ahead. And this situation just kind of forced us to reevaluate that. Online banking, to your point, great opportunity for you to not have to go into a branch, be able to conduct a lot of stuff without having to do that personal transaction, if that's something that you're concerned about. And you're still going to have those people who, I need change of $1, and I'm just going to go make an excuse to go see the folks over at the downtown branch just to say hello to them. Right. So you're still going to have those people. And again, that goes to your brand. But I think this could be a really great opportunity to re-educate people on those services. And a parallel that I would draw is a couple of our medical clients that have been offering telemed for at least a year, in some cases 2 years, and the patients just had no interest, didn't want to adopt it.
Right.
Into it and didn't know how to do it. And the very first project that we did when my team went remote was we produced a series of instructional videos for one of our medical clients on how their patients can access and create a telemed account, what the benefits are of it. And second phase of that is going to be how to utilize that platform for things like prescription renewals or scheduling your next appointment, that kind of stuff, so that you can take greater control of that type of thing. So I think there definitely is an opportunity for you guys to re-educate on some of the value and the benefits as part of a USB client.
And we've done some of that, but I probably need to work a little bit harder at trying to figure out the right way to message that and get the right links, because all of the video tutorials are already produced by and on our website, but it has been tricky to try not to push too much. We decided early on that we were not going to be the information center for everything about COVID-19, because that's not what we do. We decided that what we will continue to talk about is what we do. And, that's banking, and that might include spam, the scams that are going on and stuff like that, things that are related to banking. And so we didn't want to be you can click on our website and find out where to get tested. That just wasn't, well, it was changing every day anyway, but.
Sure. But it's not your brand. It's not your brand. I mean, who thinks of their bank as a resource for that kind of stuff? And I know that was a bandwagon that everybody wanted to jump on initially, but I think people quickly realized that unless you were doing it full time, the information was changing so quickly that you were doing as much damage by having outdated information as no information at all, and let them go find it from a reliable source. I think the other thing is you're in a really great position to maybe think about some testimonials. Because you guys did truly impact and help keep some businesses up and running, to keep some families that are able to continue to pay their mortgage because their employers were able to tap into that money. And there's a lot to be said about that hometown banking experience, without it making it seem like you guys are some small rinky dink whatever. But I heard some pretty interesting stories of some friends of mine across the country and across the state who thought that because they were aligned with larger banks that they were going to have greater success in pushing through PPP paperwork. And that has not been the case.
Right.
So whatever the reason was, you guys truly fulfilled an incredibly important community service to your customers. And it's always better to hear other people say that on your behalf. So I would encourage you to think about where some of those pockets are, where people might be willing to help do. And it's not just about the stimulus stuff, but even the individual who maybe had never done online banking before because they were scared of it, but adopted it, and now there's an opportunity to share that story.
And I don't want to take up too much more time, but just to update you guys about the second round of the PPP funding, yesterday was a complete nightmare as the system was acting like the Florida unemployment system. It was overwhelmed, and our lenders kept getting kicked out. They'd get a certain way through an input of a loan, and then they'd get kicked out and they'd have to start all over and keep refreshing, and it would spin and spin. I watched Bill and Sherry, try to work on a couple, and it was maddening, absolutely maddening. And so they came, Bill, I don't know what all of our lenders did, but Bill and Sherry in our downtown Leesburg office came in right before midnight last night, and they were still there an hour or so ago because they just had better access. I guess some of the other people were sleeping. So they were able to I think get all of the second round of what they had on their desks, loan requests in. So we'll just see, because the fear was that the money would run out again. And so it was another valiant effort by our team. It's been crazy.
Yeah, well done. Well done. Any other questions?
I think we have another question from Tim Simpson.
Oh, go ahead, Tim. Hi, Tim.
Hey, Timmy showed up.
He's here.
In my car. How you guys doing?
So, man, you're not driving, are you?
I'm not driving. I'm parked.
Okay. All right. Good.
We've talked before. Quick question. I know a lot of what I keep hearing are essentially what are problems. It's the old adage, the Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. And you want to talk a little bit about, at the end of the day, I think we're still going to be problem solvers. And I tell our girls this all the time. When someone walks in the door, they want their problem to be solved. They don't really care how it gets solved. So I think we need to keep sight of that. We're going to be still problem solvers at the end of the day. It's just how we solve that problem. I mean, whether it's a sore back for Tracy or us, or, telemed or what have you, we can't lose sight of the fact that we're problem solvers, right? Do you agree?
I do, yeah. And I think I think situations like this, look, my company started right after the crash in 2008. And that was a forced situation. I never set out to say, hey, I'm going to be an entrepreneur and a business owner. But I was faced with a problem that had to get solved, and then launch a company during a period of time in which other businesses were struggling. And the last thing they wanted to do was spend money on marketing. So it was a matter of understanding what their problems were and how do I solve them. But Tim, I would take your point one step further and remind you of something that I know you already know. And that is the solution to the problem has to be in the customer's best interest, not necessarily in your best interest. And I think that that's a larger investment. So, creating that, and I'm not sure how long you've been on, but, we were talking to Jean about making some proactive phone calls to let some of her customers know, there's an opportunity that you might be able to, pause this payment or lower this payment or upgrade for whatever for the same amount of money. Could be a temporary step backwards in how much money is being generated off that client, but a larger investment in the long term. One of the, if some of you are looking for a really good book to read, my personal Bible in the world of business is called The Go-Giver by Bob Berg. And that talks a lot about being in the situation of providing value to those that will in turn return that value back to you. So I think you're dead on in that we are going to have to be problem solvers, but it can't be, hey, look, we got to make up some revenue for the next quarter. Can we push a little bit more product? Can we push a little more services? Can we get people to buy something that maybe they don't really need so that we can make our bottom line? And all we've done is a short-term solution for ourselves, but we haven't solved an issue for the customer or the client in the process. Would you agree? You agree with that, don't you, Tim? I mean, that's sort of your philosophy over there.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's their problem. It's our problem of lower revenue is not their problem.
Right.
They want to be healthy, they want to be taken care of, and they still want the good service that we've all provided in whatever industry we're in. So it's their problem. It's problem, solution, and result at the end. So that's not going to change. I mean,
right.
It's a 3-act story that we have to just adjust and adapt to. So.
I'm going to tell you, Tim, I think that the Zoom calls are going to help your business. I'm speaking from personal experience on the need for a facial after looking at myself on Zoom calls all day.
Oh, you're looking great. Actually, it's funny you say that. We actually had our very first spa day last week, virtual. We sampled several products, had a product rep jump on the call, and the 4 ladies absolutely loved it. You're hands off, but it was very educational. All of our products are available, shameless plug, I mean, home delivery or whatever, but you just have to adjust and adapt. I mean, there's ways to do it. So, but we got you, Sandy.
All right. Well, I think at this point, we're going to go ahead, unless I see any major thing. I'm just going to say, thank you so much, Mark, for your time.
Thank you, guys.
Expertise.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
So there's one thing we didn't talk about, and I just need 60 seconds.
Go ahead.
And that's the little tease that we included. And that's an analogy I'm using a lot. If you've ever lived up north in the winters and you've been told, make sure you leave your faucets running a little bit overnight, leave the water trickling so the pipes don't freeze. That is my overall advice to marketing as well. We saw maybe 1 or 2 of our clients basically pull the plug on everything for the next couple of weeks, next couple of months. For the most part, others have said, where can we pull back a little, yet still keep our message out there? And that is my overall message. So whether it's through social media, whether it's being engaged in these types of things, whether it's just networking, whatever you're able to do, if you were running, for instance, weekly newspaper ads, maybe cutting back to half instead of pulling them all. Keep the water trickling so those pipes don't freeze, because it's really difficult to get the water flowing again after that if the pipes did freeze. It's much more challenging. The last thing I want to share, and this is more sort of philosophical and anecdotal, and then I'll shut up and leave you guys alone, is these are really challenging times as far as polarization of people's opinions about everything. And it is interesting to me when you look at social media to see business owners who have taken very strong positions in certain areas. And while I have absolute respect for anybody and everybody's First Amendment right to say what they want, I encourage you to remember that you're still running a business and you're still out there. And any risk of alienating somebody over something that is outside the scope of your business is something to maybe think about. So, look, there's certainly certain businesses in our area that are known for specific beliefs and political leanings or whatever, and that's part of their brand. You don't like what we think, you don't like the banner we're flying in front of our business, then don't shop here. We're okay with that. But be careful about allowing yourself to get drawn in as a business owner at the possible risk of alienating people who are going to help get your business back on track again.
Either way, I'm assuming. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mark. Hey, I want to thank everyone who joined us today for this call. We are looking to do more of these, and we are looking for suggestions on other topics. So if there's a topic in particular that you would like to hear, please let us know. We have some that we're working on right now, but we're always looking for more. And again, Mark, and I just have to point out that in this time, Mark did this from out of the greatness of his of his heart and just the willingness to help us all. So thank you so much again for your generosity on that as well.
And if you need us, redapplesmedia.com.
That's right. All right. Thank you all. We will see you next time.
Pam, call me.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, Trace, can you wait just 1 sec?